So if you lead with your humanity, then we're going to grant you humanity. If you lead with you're an expert, then you can't ever be anything but that expert.
So there's something important that happens. You break into being a public figure, and you're on BET, you're on urban radio every day. And by the way, we're not going to diminish the importance of urban radio, because I would deduce from my own experience that you being on the Tom Joyner Morning Show every day has you more famous than you being on BET, right? You talking to Black America during our morning commute every day. I knew you before I knew you, right?
Yeah.
Like now I know you.
Yeah.
But I knew Cousin Jeff. I knew Jeff from Tom Joyner, and I knew eventually Jeff from Rickey Smiley before I know who you are.
No, that's
right?
fair.
Yeah. And so we ain't gonna reduce the impact of Black urban radio.
It's nuts. I literally have been on urban radio every week for 14 years.
My Lord.
I did
And that's talking to
5
thousands
years,
of households.
millions.
That's
I mean,
thousands of
the
households.
Tom Joyner Show, so Tavis was leaving the Tom Joyner Show, and they did a competition to see who would take Tavis's place. And I won that competition. So then I came on Tom Joyner Morning Show. And then Rickey's show started to raise up, and Rickey was hosting an event that I spoke at in Detroit. And I'm doing what I do, and I look like off stage. Rickey is at the side of the stage taking notes from my speech. So I finish the speech, I go backstage. They're like, Rickey wants you to come back out on stage. So Rickey is literally like celebrating me. He was like, I need you to come on the show, da 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 da. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. You know, people say that shit all the time. That next Monday, I start getting text messages like, Rickey has been talking about you on the show for the last 5 minutes. Maybe 2 weeks later, I was on Rickey's show. So I don't know if there is any more powerful vehicle than urban radio for our communities. It's the place where we know it's ours. We know the local DJs. The local DJs are powerful influencers because they show up at stuff locally. Urban radio remains a undisputed champion of talking to the Black community.
And this gets you into multiple markets
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
So you end up in multiple markets at the same time, and you have never stopped a private sector client practice.
Nope.
What does that look like?
So, I mean, you know, I went from having a political consultancy to a comm shop, and my comm shop was all corporate. And I never talked about it. I used to have people say, why don't you talk about I'm like, cause one, my corporate clients like that I'm not on social media talking about them.
Right.
And the work that I'm doing is how are we helping change management to help companies spend more with Black folks, or hire more people of color, or position the company to better leverage culture for growth. I mean, this is pre-2020. I'm real about this shit. Like, this is not something I did because of George Floyd. It was always. What's interesting is no matter how much TV I've gotten or radio I've gotten, I've trusted my consultancy more than I've trusted TV.
And I think that's important, because when you're talking about pre-George Floyd, of course, but going back to BET, to Tom Joyner, to Rickey Smiley, talk about the economics of that. What are you getting paid for BET and Tom Joyner?
Like, when I was doing, Rap City was almost laughable. Because I lived in the DMV. We taped Rap City in New York. I got to get up to New York to tape Rap City.
On the train.
I think when I first started, they were paying me like $150 an episode.
Per time.
So like,
and that's not your train ride.
So I'm paying.
Yeah.
I'm paying to be on Rap City.
Right.
But I saw what it was. You know what I mean? I saw the opportunity that it was. I mean, it became lucrative. It was like, so let's not get it twisted. Like, I got to a point where after 3 or 4 years on the network, I was covering State of the Union addresses. I was interviewing, I've interviewed Obama for BET, Hillary Clinton for BET. I interviewed Ellen Johnson Sirleaf for BET. I was in northern Sudan in the desert interviewing Omar el-Bashir, who's the president of Sudan, about the genocide in Darfur for BET. So, like, I became a legitimate journalist.
And that's the thing. You somehow find your way into this legitimate and venerated profession of journalism. When you were just a hip hop guy, right? You were just a hip hop guy who happened to be a committed organizer.
I was a political guy.
Okay.
I was a political guy who was a part of the culture. So I never pretended to be the entertainment guy. I wasn't Tigger. Like, for those people who grew up watching in the basement, Tigger could freestyle better than half the dudes that had deals.
That's right.
Like, Tigger was hip hop. I was politics, who was a part of the culture. And I never pretended to be anything different. I'll never forget Claudia Jordan. Some people know, some people don't know. You know Claudia Jordan.
I am aware of who she is, yes.
So Claudia Jordan was my girlfriend when I was 13. We met at a track meet in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And so I've known Claudia Jordan a long time. And I'll never forget, Claudia was Miss Teen Rhode Island.
Okay.
In like 89, something like that, right? And I'll never forget when we've remained friends. When I first got on TV and she was like, Jeff, I don't know if you understand the blessing you have. And I'm like, what do you mean? She said, you were invited to be on TV to be yourself. So you haven't had to pretend to be something else.
Yes.
You haven't had to fight not being yourself.
There's never any performance. From the moment you're on TV, there's never any performance.
And I thank Stephen Hill for that.
Yeah. Because
Stephen Hill invited me to be on Rap City, sure, there was a name Cousin Jeff, but that was because Rap City in the Basement was supposed to be in Tigger's basement. So I couldn't just be rolling up in there as just some random dude.
Right.
I was his cousin. But I got to be me. And because there was no audience, and because Tigger was just Tigger, I got to just be me. And so there was such a blessing, not only for me framing who I am as a consultant who does this work, but who I am on air and on Tom Joyner. I'm not a caricature. I'm not acting. I'm not performing. I was asked to come on to be me, to talk about what I knew, to talk about the work that I did. And so wait, Don, here's what's crazy. So I would go to colleges and universities, and I'm on the circuit, and I would have young guys be like, I want to do what you do. And I'm like, well, what's that? What do I do? And they're like, I want to be a motivational speaker. And I'm like, yo. And they didn't know. Like, that is actually the worst thing you could ever say to me.
Yeah.
And I would say to them, I'm not a motivational speaker. I work. I speak with passion about the work I do.
That I know. Things that I do.
That I do.
Yeah.
Not because there's a difference.
But I know
right?
it because I do this.
Because when I first started working for Jamal told me if I wanted to be a serious leader, I had to read a book a week. He was like, if you want to lead the people, you constantly have to be learning and doing. And the moment you stop that, you get to a point where you now no longer have anything to teach the people. And so that was important for me because I'm like, I speak passionately about the work I do. That's why I always have something to say. The moment I stop being a political consultant, the moment I stop this work over here, my stuff on TV now just becomes conjecture because I'm not talking about what I do. I'm now talking about what I read.
Right.
And anybody who does real work knows there's a difference. And I'm taking nothing away from academics. I'm taking nothing away from intellectuals. I'm taking nothing away from theorists. I'm taking nothing away from those folks. There's a fundamental difference between those people who are practitioners and those people who are theorists.
Yeah.
And you need both. But theorists know if I don't have a relationship with practitioners, then at some point, I don't even know if this shit makes sense.
How do you get to a point where you determine that you are a journalist?
I'm not. I've never been a journalist.
But you've been paid to be a journalist.
I've been a storyteller.
Fair. Break that down.
Journalists are trained. And I will tell you, brother, I have been in situations when I realized I wasn't a journalist. I was in the bush about 2.5 hours outside of Monrovia. And we're doing a piece on the UN's sanction of diamonds in Liberia. So Minister Faya, who's the Minister of Gems and Minerals in Liberia, takes us 2 hours out into the bush to meet this guy named Jungle Jim. And Jungle Jim was a diamond miner. He was the guy that was controlling the guys that were digging for the diamonds. And we come out to do this interview with Jungle Jim. I was ill-equipped. Jungle Jim handed me my ass. Like if it was not for my producer, who was a legitimate journalist, who understood how to see beyond this shit that Jungle Jim was throwing at me and ask the right questions and come back around. He guided me in real time through this interview with skills that a real journalist has.
Would have asked. Yeah.
Without question. And so I'm thankful for every opportunity of doing journalism that I've had, but I've never been confused that I wasn't a trained journalist. I am a storyteller, a person who wants to talk to people, to understand who they are, to pull out of them what their experiences have been. But what happens when you're talking to somebody who don't want to tell you?
Yeah.
What happens to somebody when somebody's trying to spin you? Journalists have been trained and are in the field and have been in battle with people that I had not been. And so, and that's fine, right? Because I entered into public life in a place where all that was changing anyway. So you started having more storytellers than trained journalists. You started having people that had a perspective and a point of view versus telling a neutral story. Journalists knew how to tell a neutral story, but could go toe to toe with somebody to pull stuff out.
But at some point, you start eking out this career that is
public
and somewhat journalist, somewhat storyteller. But at the same time, you are participating in campaign support.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so you're a campaign strategist.
Oh, yeah.
Underneath all this public-facing stuff you're doing.
Yep.
And
which is challenging.
Yes, very much so. And I know you've supported multiple campaigns just in terms of advice and wise counsel and where you should be and who you should be talking to about what. But there is a particular campaign in Ohio for statewide office that changes your life.
Yes.
Ken Blackwell.
Yes.
Break that down.
So, Ken Blackwell is to this day the only person of color to ever win a statewide race in Ohio. He's a Republican. He was first state treasurer and then was Secretary of State. And when he was Secretary of State in 2004, there was massive voter disenfranchisement in Ohio. Democrats blame him because he's Secretary of State and he's legitimately moving to benefit Republicans. So he becomes Darth Vader in Ohio. He then decides to run for governor. I'm working for People for the American Way. They're one of my clients at the time. They say, Jeff, check this out. We want you to go to Ohio to mobilize black people against
Ken
Ken Blackwell.
Yes. Ken Blackwell.
Which in Democratic circles was not a stretch. Right. I'm like, wait a minute. We got about 2% people of color and people for the American way. You want me to go to Ohio to report to a bunch of white folks to mobilize black people against the black guy? They like, yeah. So I'm like, well, who's he running against? So it was a guy named Ted Strickland.
Yep.
If you meet Ted Strickland might be one of the nicest people you ever
A
met.
good man. And a nationally respected Democrat.
Yes. Yeah. And I think you said it right the first time. He's a good man.
Yeah.
Like, he is a good person. He cares about people, but he wasn't a great congressman.
Right.
He was ranked 403rd. and was probably legitimately the only elected official in Ohio, the only elected official in Ohio who legitimately shouldn't have had any black people working for him. He's on the Appalachian side of Ohio, West Virginia. I don't even think he had any people of color in his district. So my thing is, well, if he doesn't have any people of color in his district, how in the hell does he know what to do for Cleveland and Columbus and Cincinnati and Youngstown and Toledo and Findlay and Dayton?
There's a whole lot of black folks in those spaces.
Bruh.
Yeah.
Like, people who don't know Ohio don't know, like, there's a lot of cities in Ohio.
Right.
And a lot of black people in those cities. And so I'm like, well, what's his urban agenda going to be? Well, the benefit, because of his political work, the guys who I had worked with during the Kerry campaign were the same finance guys running his campaign. So I called him. I'm like, can y'all get me an urban agenda? Sure, Jeff, we'll get it to you. Week goes by, 2 weeks go by, 3 weeks go by, a month goes by, a month and a half goes by. In the meantime, somebody has told Ken Blackwell, well, Jeff Johnson, this guy on BET, is from Ohio. You should give him a call. So Ken gives me a call. We meet, and I like him. I'm like, there's probably about 10% that, like, I'm a battle you on, and about 15%. This is a guy who was a state treasurer. Like,
relatively nonpartisan.
Uber pragmatic.
Yeah.
You don't become state treasurer because you like politics.
That's right.
You become a state treasurer because you know money. You know management. You know how to manage money towards successfully providing services to a populace. We got to have another conversation about the challenge between black folks being representatives and political executives.
Yes.
Because most representatives don't know how to be executives. Because they don't know P&L.
Yes.
They don't manage.
And there's a big difference between being a member of a legislature and being the executive, right? Yeah.
When you're a representative,
broad difference.
You ride for people.
Yes.
When you're an executive, you manage people.
That's right.
They are fundamentally different.
That's right.
Right? This dude was a manager running for a management position. So I'm like, here's what else I found out. In my research, I found out that he had done business with more black businesses than anybody on either side of the aisle.
And so I'm clear, he's a Republican.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had hired more people of color than anybody on either side of the aisle. So now the points is checking off, man, for Ken Blackwell. So I tell the people at PFAR, I'm like, listen, if I don't get an urban agenda from this dude, I'm going to publicly support Ken Blackwell. And one of my people there was like, well, do you know what that means? I'm like, yeah, that means I'm going to leave PFAR, right? Because y'all not going to sit here and let me continue to be here while I'm supporting this Republican. So I do this elaborate open letter. And I tell Ken, I say, listen, I'm going to support you, but there's two things. One, you can't pay me. Because the dig with black people who have been traditionally Democratic and support Republicans is you going there for the money. So I'm like, I'm going to remove all that. You cannot pay me. The second thing is I'm coming for you on these three issues. Like, we will not be eye to eye on that. I'm coming for you on these three issues. So I lay out in this open letter all the stuff I just told you. I don't think that Ted Strickland understands urban communities. He doesn't have a history of supporting urban communities. He doesn't have any people of color in his district office or his DC office. That Kim Blackwell was one of the original investors in Radio One. And then so I lay all this stuff out. He knows how to manage money for the state. He's done it before. That's going to benefit Black people. He's hired Black people. He's done business with Black people. Like, this is the dude that I want to support, and here's why. And beyond that, he had a Black family. Like,
married to a Black woman.
Married to a Black woman. Black kids who view themselves as Black.
Yeah.
All those things matter to me. I didn't say that as much.
No, but it's a real thing.
But that was part of my. I remember being at an event at Central State when there was some students coming for Ken, and his son was like, "I'm about to fuck these. I'm about to go out in the parking lot." But so within 48 hours of releasing this public letter, I lost 75% of my contracts. There were full.
So just for the sake of clarity, if you have $100,000 worth of contracts, which by the way doesn't make you a rich man, but it means you have $100,000 worth of contracts. Now you're down to $25,000 worth of contracts. You can feed yourself to my politics has gotten me fucked up.
If you got $1,
yeah,
and now you got a quarter.
Yeah.
That hurts.
Yes, it does.
But that's not what hurt the most. What hurt the most is they were full on conference calls in organizations calling me a traitor.
And ultimately, is that because you are supporting a Republican? It's not about principle, right? It's because he's a Republican?
Huh?
Is it because he's a Republican, or is it about because principle?
People want to control us. It's because when you get your bread and butter, when you get your bread buttered by the party expects you to be loyal.
Come on, man.
To them.
But I think that's important. That is a part of being a Black man who has chosen a professional existence in American politics, presumably Democratic politics.
Yeah, but they had me fucked up.
They did.
That's not who I was.
They did have you fucked up.
Never
but
there.
I'm saying, let's establish.
But
that is a part of the peril you faced is being a part of being a Black man.
I didn't face peril. I faced a decision.
Okay.
So I lost 75% of my contracts, but fuck them. I got more.
No, but it took courage for you to say fuck them.
No, it did. But here's the thing. The thing is, we have to be clear in this work who we serve.
Yes, sir.
I was never confused about who I served.
Okay.
I was never there to serve the Democratic Party. I'm not here to serve the Democratic Party now. If I'm aligning with Democrats, it's because I believe Democrats are right.
Yeah.
If I'm aligning with somebody, it's because I believe that they're right. I'm serving Black people. And I'm always there to serve Black people.
Come on, man.
And even when Black people don't disagree with me, I'm still there to serve Black people. I understand that there is a mosaic of Black people.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I want to serve as many Black people as I can and do the least harm to as many Black people as I can.
Yeah.
Even if we fundamentally disagree on approach, on policy. And that was a moment for me to prove to myself that I believed what I said. That forced me, and I doubled down on it. So, one, it was a declaration of independence for me to say, yeah, I don't serve y'all. I serve them. And you literally are asking me to try to get Black people to not vote for a person that's hired more Black people than anybody in the state.
Yeah.
You're asking me to ask Black people to not support a person who has done more business with Black people than anybody in the state. I don't care if he's a Republican or not.
And by the way, he's a Black man.
Bruh.
And his politics are not divorced from your daddy and your mama and your grandma.
He was not a Trump Republican.
Yeah,
he was not a religious right Republican.
But all this is before Trump.
This was religious right.
Yes.
So he was not a religious right Republican. He was a traditional conservative.
Yeah.
And those are fundamentally different. But the bottom line down for me was I know who I serve. I know who I got into this to serve. And what killed me was it was more black people coming at me.
Yeah.
Like it was, and I'm talking about black people who ain't even from Ohio. Like I had folks in the hip hop caucus, not hip hop caucus, but hip hop convention. I had other activists coming against me. This sister named Rosa Clemente, who many people know, who was the one person who actually understood she could be my friend and still challenge me.
Yeah.
She was like, Jeff, I don't understand what you're doing, so we need to have a talk. And I'm gonna fight you on this, but I love you. And it was the same thing that Stephanie Tubbs Jones said to me, because I called her first. I'm like, hey, I know you supporting this guy. I can't do it. Is this gonna mess up our relationship? And she said, Jeff, our relationship is bigger than politics. She said, I love you. She said, I'm gonna kick your ass though. And then you're gonna buy me dinner after you lose.
Shout out to my boy Merv, man.
Yeah.
Started Pine Street.
And I think that's important because we go to war with people who are actually our allies in the name of politicians who don't care about us.
Yes, Lord.
And that's some bullshit.
Yeah.
And if you really gonna be in this work and you're gonna navigate this work, you gotta understand the difference between the work and legacy. Because legacy is about my people.
Come on, man.
Work is about a campaign.
Yeah.
And when this campaign is over and this person wins 9 times out of 10, they ain't investing in my legacy. So I'm never going to go to war
with my people.
Nah.
For this permanent.
Nah.
In a permanent state over this temporary race.
It's like this, man.
Yeah.
We have created narrative about the black intelligentsia or black leadership camps, which is false. So we talk about Du Bois versus
Washington. Yeah.
The narrative in itself is flawed. Who was one of the first people, Booker T.
And this
Washington?
is what you and I were taught. Like there was
Yes.
Du Bois and Washington,
Yes.
and they were opposite.
But who was one of the first people Booker T. Washington hired to be on the faculty at Tuskegee?
Yeah.
Who?
Du Bois. Yeah.
What are we talking
That's
about?
a fact. Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Yeah.
They rode for an ideology and a methodology that they thought made sense. They never allowed that to mean that they didn't get along.
Right.
They just recognized these are options. Do we think that King and Malcolm were so unsophisticated that they didn't realize they needed each other?
Yeah.
Anybody who thinks that Malcolm X and Martin Luther King didn't talk is insane.
That's right.
They're literally stupid.
Yeah.
They understood they needed each other. There were conservative black folks that needed a Malcolm X to increase ranks within black conservatives. And I'm not talking about black Republicans. I'm talking about the civil rights movement was black conservatives.
Yeah.
There were black nationalists needed black conservatives to push people towards black nationalism.
And they would say, hey, you would rather talk to me or deal with them niggas.
So, and let's keep it 100. Martin needed Malcolm, but there was also a president of NAACP who needed Martin. So you had, and I'm having a brain fart. Who was the president of NAACP at that time?
I mean, we're talking about Whitney Young?
No. He was Urban League. Damn. I'm drawing a brain fart.
Charles Hamilton Houston?
No. He was the Legal Defense Fund. Roy Wilkins. So people always talk about how much King was talking to Johnson. Nobody was talking to Johnson more than Wilkins. Wilkins was in the Oval Office when Johnson was pissed with Martin.
Yeah.
So all of these dudes knew they were chess pieces on the board. There's no way you can tell me that these brothers didn't have private dinners.
Yeah.
Private conversations.
No, they did.
and they went to war in the public for the purpose of the chess game. Now we got Negroes going to war over nothing in the name of nothing.
Social media followers.
And not having private conversation to be clear that these are chess moves for us to be ensure. If at the end of the day there isn't pragmatic gain for us, then what was the point of all this? What was the point of all this?
So you get into not only political consulting, and you're doing the rat racing, the horse race thing in terms of D versus R. You've built a private sector consulting practice for yourself after a career in the NAACP. How does that get into an extended stay in the private sector with multiple private sector clients that you're navigating through this political process?
Well, stop being political.
Okay.
No, after Ken Blackwell, I was like, to hell with these people. I want to impact the corporate space. And so probably for the past 15 years, I've only supported candidates who are my people.
Yeah.
So, when I was running around talking about Randall Woodfin being the next mayor of Birmingham, I know people who supported him, who when I started talking about it, was like, nah, ain't never gonna happen.
Right.
So when I think about supporting Randall, I supported Randall because
that's when I met you. I met you in pursuit of Randall becoming the first.
I didn't make any money. Randall wasn't my client.
Yeah.
I didn't make any money off of Randall's campaign.
How did you find him, and what about him resonated with you?
Randall was my wife's Morehouse brother. So I remember my wife being like, I got this guy friend named Randall. I'm like, oh, here we go. Just like, okay, your best male friend.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, that guy.
I was doing a speech in Georgia, and Randall had driven down from Atlanta. I ain't met him yet. Drove down from Atlanta and was like, yo, man, Ivy told me he was going to be out here speaking. I just came to see if you need anything.
Right.
I'm like, what? Like, who is this dude?
Right.
And I just fell in love with Randall Woodfin. I fell in love with who he was as a human, with who he was as a servant. And then in talking to him, I saw his vision. Like, he went to Morehouse to go back to Birmingham. He went to the University of Alabama Law School to go back to Birmingham. This brother had a vision to serve his hometown. And I loved it. And I loved how much he loved people, and I loved how much he wanted to serve. So that was that. When my friend Wes Moore decides to run for governor, I didn't make any money off that campaign. He wasn't my client.
There comes a time where, let me make sure I put this right. You know the guys running for office, but you're not in the campaigns.
Right.
And you're not outwardly advocating from the campaigns. So how do you get to a place where, and this is in the concept of political adjacency, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you go from a place where you're a guy working in politics, openly, outwardly advocating for public, affairs and even election outcomes? How do you go from a place from that to where you are advising a Randall Woodfin, a Raphael Warnock, a Frank Scott, a Wes Moore, behind the scenes? You're advising them behind the scenes, and they know your support means something, but you're not publicly, outwardly facing, leading those campaigns.
Well, that's what relationship is about. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, I know this work, and I've been tested in this work. And so when my friends call me to ask for my advice, I give it to them. But I also strategically talked about Randall Woodfin on the Rickey Smiley Morning Show.
Yeah.
Early.
Yeah.
Early. When people was like, why you keep talking about this dude? I talked about Wes. But what's interesting is for me, I don't do transactional. So I only do I only do relationship and substantive relationship.
Is it fair to say that you only have relationships with people who you, in your heart of hearts, believe mean the best for Black folks?
Um, by and large, I mean, I think
In
that
other words, let me ask you a different way. Today, you're Jeff Johnson.
right.
Everybody knows who Jeff Johnson is. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I don't know a moment in my adult consciousness where Jeff Johnson has not been a consistent public figure. Are you only pushing candidates? Are you only in relationship because you're now famous? Are you only in relationship with people? How do you make sure you're in relationship with people who want to use your influence for the best of Black folks?
So here's what's interesting, right? On the political side, is because I have relationship with them. So, this cycle is the first time I'm actually doing consultant work for a friend.
Mm.
So I'm actually doing comms work and officially advising Hill Harper's campaign for Senate. This is the first time I'm merging
In Michigan.
the professional world with my personal world, and Hill and I have been friends almost 20 years. But otherwise, it's just relationship. The corporate piece is different because what I realize is that there are people who are racist,
Mm.
whose capitalism will help Black people.
Ooh, speak on that.
So I was in a room of 15 CEOs about a week ago, and all of them are aggressively, publicly anti-DEI. Right?
Anti-DEI.
Yes.
Diversity, equity, inclusion.
Yes.
Aggressively.
Yes.
Anti.
Yes.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And there's two reasons why they are aggressively anti-DEI. One is because they think it's liberal sorcery. And two is because DEI has only been presented to them through the lens of philanthropy.
Okay. That's right.
Now, if I'm a CEO, I don't do philanthropy. Because guess what? I'm being held accountable on a quarterly basis by earnings. One of the biggest challenges of DEI is that most DEI practitioners don't understand P&L. So most of it is legitimate. Yes, there is a moral imperative for us to do this work. But most of that work translates into programs and training. The work that I have done is about how do we leverage this for growth. So in this room of 15 CEOs who are all anti-DEI, I asked a simple question. How many of you are leveraging the growth of your company on white men?
Jeez.
Nobody raises their hand. They don't care about Black people, but they want Black people's money.
Yeah.
But you ain't hired no Black people at the executive level. You ain't hired no Black people at the marketing level. Your competitors are whipping your ass in the Black market. You don't invest any money with Black people, so you got no brand reputation. You ain't got nothing.
Yeah.
But I thought that you was more capitalist than you was racist.
So why?
So now let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
Now let's have a conversation about if the future of your company is rooted in North America, is rooted in Black and brown consumers, then how do you access those Black and brown consumers? Well, you only do that by having Black and brown people that are culturally competent to help you access that market.
Yes.
So we had a guy, and the non-disclosure on this was like so insane. Like I can't even say where it was. No, seriously. We had a group of CEOs that we were working with, had similar conversation. I had a guy come up to me afterwards, was like, hey buddy, can I talk to you? I said, yeah. He said, that shit you talked about tonight's gonna keep me up. But I have no idea how to do that. how do I do it? I said, well, check this out. Let's first start with one area where you can start making impact. Let's talk about spend. And I said, listen, we're not going to talk about you going to 15% spend with people of color. How about this? How about you commit to 1% of the top 5% of your contracts? Because now we talk about money.
Mm-hmm.
And he was honest. He said, yeah, that's great, but there aren't many black companies that can compete for the RFPs that I have at the top 5% of my spend. So the biggest area for him was transportation. So there were 13 black trucking companies in the region. So we said, listen, would you be willing as a company to help create an opt-in joint venture for these 13 trucking companies? So now every time there's a transportation RFP, it goes to the joint venture. And as long as at least 8 of the trucking companies opt in, they can now compete for any of the contracts. Well, 2 years later, check this. Of the 13 trucking companies, 7 of them are now 5x revenue.
From one company.
From one company.
One source company.
From one company.
Yeah.
3 of them are 10x. But this is where the shit goes crazy. So I get a call from this same CEO. And he's like, hey, Jeff, you know Tyrone? I'm like, John, I know several Tyrones. Tyrone who owns so-and-so trucking company.
Right.
I'm like, yeah. He said, that's the smartest son bitch I've ever met in my life. I just fired 3 of my guys because he showed me where I was losing money. And then he said, can I tell you something else? I'm like, yeah, but why are you whispering? He said, because they'll kick me out the country club if I told this.
Yeah.
He said, I got my son interning with him.
Yeah.
So check. We often want to deal with DEI through the lens of moral imperative. And I get it. Like, I understand it fully. Most white men won't make money with anybody till they make money off them.
Wait. Hold on. Pause. Hold on. I done had some clock in Chesterfield. I need to repeat that. And I need to have some more before we get back into this. Hold on. I want to be focused. Say that again.
Most white men will not make money with anybody until they make money off them.
My Lord.
Relationship comes with most of these white boys from the business they do.
That's right.
Not from a pseudo obligation to social penance.
Yeah.
How do we expect to leverage our greatest value when we come through the door as a source of philanthropy? The men and women I know from our community want to do deals.
Yeah.
They don't want charity.
Yeah.
They want to show and prove their value through delivering a business value.
But that's not new. In Cleveland, they didn't want charity. They wanted opportunity.
Yes, but DEI
Yeah.
is often delivered
As charity.
as philanthropy.
Yeah.
And so now I got middle managers that's pissed because you want me to let this dude go do this potluck dinner or this damn movie night when we already understaffed and under-resourced.
Yeah.
Versus saying, what are my DEI KPIs? How is DEI connected performance evaluation and bonus structure? So now the biggest racist in the damn company is driving DEI KPIs because it's connected to the business.
That's right.
So that's the work I do.
Yeah.
And so when you ask me about, do I only work with people who are committed to black people? No. I work with people that are committed to money.
Yeah.
That understand that black people spend.
Yeah.
And so if you want this spend, you got to serve them. You got to have them in the company. You got to have them as part of your leadership. That to me is why I think there is going to be a fundamental shift from DEI to how are we leveraging culture for growth.
So you got us through your career as a media personality, an independent consultant, a political consultant, at some point you got into the content space, not only as a host, which you had been doing as a member of urban radio every day and urban television every day. At some point you got into in being in front of the camera as a television host and as an executive producer. ManCave.
It was a Jan Van Zandt's fault.
Fix My Life, right?
Yep. So we were doing Fix My Life. She was doing this
Wait. We were doing Fix My Life. What is it? You were involved in Fix My Life?
So she was doing this insane series about Black men who had excessive numbers of children with multiple baby mamas.
There is that.
No.
No, I'm saying that's a thing.
I'm talking about people with 10, 15, 20 kids.
Okay.
With multiple baby mamas. And she asked me if I'd come on the show.
Okay.
Why
did she ask you?
She and I had a relationship for some time, and she knows that I am. She knows that I was a husband, that I was a divorced husband, that I had kids. Like she.
Wait. No. I'm gonna put it out there because this is one of the places where you and I bond, in that we are the nerdy academic guys, but we have. You and I have more than one kid by more than one mother.
Yeah. But that's not unusual when you turn a certain age. I
mean,
mean,
it's not not only is it not unusual, but it's not shameful.
I don't give a fuck what anybody calls it. Like,
come on now.
I know who my babies are and I know who their mamas are.
Preach on it.
So you can think whatever you want to about my life. When all is said and done, the only thing that matters is, do my kids know where I am?
Yes.
And do they know how much I love them? And do they know that they can come?
And am I providing? And am I being a decent father?
Yeah, but I'm over that. I'm over dads elevating financial provision over emotional provision.
So fuck all the financial shit.
But we can't say fuck all that.
But
because the very narrative of fatherhood is how much did you pay?
Yes, but do my kids know that I love them and I'm there for them and I'm providing, I'm doing what I can? Am I present with my children, regardless of how many and regardless of them coming from the same lineage? Am I there for my kids, regardless of what we're told a traditional family is supposed to look like?
Yes. And most of us don't know how to be present.
Fair enough.
Most of us know how to show up.
Yeah.
But showing up and being present are not the same.
Jeez. Okay.
So, I mean, listen, you and I know this, right? We've been it. Like I've been in a place where I showed up at all the games, but I was on the fucking phone.
Yeah.
Or, I had my time with my kids, but I didn't put my phone away.
Come on.
I didn't allow myself to shift from what I'm thinking about on the business to literally just being there with them. Because I didn't always know how to do that. So there is a reality where Black men are showing up, but we're still not present. Half the time because we ain't present for ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother thing, right?
Yeah.
So the point was that Ayanla was inviting me to this piece because she and I had conversation about men. She was like, I need somebody who can speak to these men from a man's perspective. And it got tight because at one moment on the show, I had to tell her to stop talking. I'm like, you invited me on here for me to talk to these men from a man's perspective. You still talking.
On Fix My Life.
Yeah. But you still talking. Like, you ain't never been a father.
How did Iyanla find you?
I don't remember, man. Like, I've been in this Black space. I do remember, actually. Tom Joyner was doing a live broadcast from Howard. And this was like 2002. And Fume was on the show. And I was there carrying Fume's bag. And Ayanla was on the thing. And she was like, who that little fine dude you got carrying your bag, Mr. Fume?
And you had the locks and you had the...
Oh, yeah. I was a little fine thing at the time. But that's funny because you and I talked about that. Like, people don't know, I was 30 before I was ever on TV. Like, I was a grown-ass man with kids before I was ever on TV.
Yeah.
But no, so she called me to come on, and there was a moment on the show, like this dude had, it was like, this dude had like 15 kids with 6 babies mamas.
I remember that episode. Yeah, all the
Yeah,
dolls,
man.
like the
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
man. I was just like, I was sitting here navigating the child support I pay, like for 2 kids.
Yeah.
Like how do you navigate this, bro? And so there was a moment where all of these fathers were hugging each other on stage, and I'm sitting there with them, and I'm led to a prayer, and that launched Manhood Legacy Prayer. And so Manhood Legacy Prayer was, I was doing a prayer call for Black men every Monday through Friday for 2.5 years. And the rule of Manhood Legacy Prayer, because I would have random brothers share, was that if you share, you have to talk about either something you're navigating or something you've overcome. Because if you because what happens a lot with Black men is we will get in circles and talk about what everybody needs. So what the people need is, and what we need to do is, it ain't never about us.
Yeah.
So this was a space for brothers to be transparent about themselves.
Yeah.
Like you were not allowed to talk in Manhood Legacy Prayer unless you talked about either something you were going through or something you had overcome. The moment you start talking about other people, I cut you off. And I would lead the call through the lens of whatever I was going through or whatever I had overcome. And so I did that for 2.5 years, and that was what was the bridge for me to start doing men's content. It was almost 2 years of market research that I didn't know was market research. And from that, I started doing Journacy, which was around Black men. I created a bag for Black dads. I started doing Men Thrive, that was a mental health platform for Black men
with larger companies. Right?
Yep. And was what led to ManCave, which was almost a therapeutic piece of content for me, because I was tired of showing up everywhere when people only want me to talk about politics.
Yeah.
Like I used to hate going to the club.
But that goes back to when we talked about at the beginning. I don't want to be boxed in.
Yeah.
You know me as the politics guy, but I know
and it was the worst.
Yeah.
It was the worst.
Yeah.
Like I'll never forget being at the club. Like I'm trying to be at the club.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to be at the club.
And you talking to me about
dude, and I'm like, man, let me just buy you a drink, because I don't want to talk about the election right now. Like, you know what I'm saying?
And you talking about Obama McCain.
But I also realized I would be on shows and I didn't even feel comfortable laughing or feel comfortable talking about whatever, because even with ManCave, like I would see comments on ManCave where it'd be like, I don't like this Jeff Johnson.
Well, let's back up. ManCave. Talk about what ManCave. So it comes from Iyanla and your man.
So Iyanla unlocked this not only desire but commitment for me to lean into Black men.
Yes.
In a way that I had not from a content perspective. And so Manhood Legacy Prayer was a non-public opportunity for me to engage with men. I'm like, if you can imagine, every morning at 7 a.m., Monday through Friday, for 2.5 years. Every day, I'm doing a 15-minute prayer call for 2.5 years. So the level of insight I'm getting about what brothers are dealing with, about what they're saying, about what they're needing, was unbelievable. And so it was in that moment that I realized Black men are the least polled demographic in America. So not only are we the least polled demographic, we have the lowest life expectancy.
Come on, man.
So we got the lowest life expectancy, and don't nobody know what the fuck we need. Yeah. And we don't talk. So,
but we think that we know what you need because we see athletes and entertainers. The American populace.
Yeah, but no. Who is advocating for Black men?
Oh, nobody. But I'm saying
no. So who are you talking about?
But I'm saying the American populace.
The American populace doesn't talk about Black men.
They don't, but they think they know what Black men
They don't care.
Based upon
they don't care.
The popular image of Black men.
But they don't care.
Okay.
Who's talking about who Black men are?
Nobody.
So what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like nobody's even talking about who black men are.
Yeah.
So you even had these dumbass conversations with Democrats when they run around like, oh my God, black men are voting for Trump.
Yeah.
And I'm asking them, well, why do black men vote? And they start talking about Medicare and no, black men vote about money.
Money. Who's hustling? Who gonna put money in my pocket?
Who lets me keep my money?
Yes. Who let me keep
Who
mine?
lets me keep my money?
Which, by the way, is not much different than what we started talking about the original Republican Party tenants. Who gonna get out my pockets? Who gonna get out my business?
That's it.
Yeah.
Because I would rather vote for Trump and keep my money and then do it what I believe I should than vote for Biden, who I believe, based on narrative, is going to take my money.
But there's a problem there about.
I'm not saying that the narrative isn't flawed. What I'm saying is, y'all motherfuckers don't understand why black men vote.
Yeah.
So yes, that narrative about Democrats and Republicans and your money is flawed. But what's not flawed is the fact that you don't understand why black men vote. Black men are almost universally defined by what I do and how much money I make. Period. Black men define themselves by what my job is and how much money I make. Because those are the things that determine how I take care of my family, how I take care of my children, how I show up in the world, how I'm validated by what I have on,
Right.
by what I drive, by where I live, by what y'all motherfuckers think I do or don't do, right? That is almost fundamentally the narrow scope within, especially baby boomers and Xers. Now, Zennials, they got a level of freedom.
A little different, yeah.
And they're changing some of that narrative, and I celebrate them for that. But if we're talking about the last 20 years, like most black men have not allowed themselves to get out of this box of who I am is what I do for a living. And it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
So you end up in a space when you have this specific political knowledge of black men and their aims and their motivations, and somehow that translates into a television show.
Yeah. So what's funny is, yes and no. I have a better understanding of what's driving black men. There's nothing like praying with black men every morning to understand what drives them. And this shit ain't political.
Because you praying for the shit that you need. The shit that you need is representative of the shit where society and the world has failed you. So where are the gaps?
And what you aspire to.
Who
you aspire to be.
Yes.
And so some of that is socio-political, and some of that is just about human frailty.
Yeah.
And when black men are willing to open up about human frailty, that's when you know it's something special.
Yeah.
And it's consistent for me, Don, because when I was on Rap City, there was no Twitter, there was no Facebook, there was no IG. MySpace had just started. We were getting snail mail.
You're hearing back from people.
Emails.
Yeah.
And my biggest fan base was the jail and the barbershop.
Yeah.
So I started my public career humbled, because the two places that don't lie are the jail and the barbershop.
Yeah.
I didn't play ball. I didn't rhyme. I wasn't a celebrity. Like, dudes would call, I would have guys I would run into on the street and be like, yo, man, I just got out of so-and-so. And man, you saved me.
Yeah.
Or when you would come on Rap City, niggas on the yard would stop talking. There's no bigger compliment than that.
Yeah.
Like, they're literally, for me, as a suburban kid, right? Like, I wasn't about that life. So when I'm validated by...
But we believe that you were speaking for us. That's real.
And I was.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. You can be speaking for people and them not know it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we're too smart for our own good. And you can over-intellectualize something in a way where you have human disconnect. The fact that brothers felt like I was speaking for them is the biggest compliment I've ever been paid. And so all of that was this long ass arc to ManCave, which was really just about how do we create a show to elevate the complexity of Black men.
So I want to get to that, and I appreciate the content. But you said we create, meaning that you had a controlling interest in, for the first time, you had a controlling interest in what you wanted to create and how you personally would be presented. And I know you were executive producer, you were co-exec producer.
I was a creator and executive
creator.
producer.
Break that down. How did ManCave come to be?
Yeah.
As a and get I want you to get into the business, because look, I'm looking at the camera. All you niggas want to show. How does that go about happening, where Jeff Johnson had a show on BET, a major American network, and how did that happen? What did the ownership look like?
And what's crazy, Don, is that even now it's antiquated.
Yeah.
Because right now,
5 years later,
brothers can go straight to do the show themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
I was already at BET, but I wrote a treatment called ManCave with.
You were at BET from like way back.
2003.
Yeah, like we talked about, way back.
I was at BET from 2003. My last contract with BET ended in 2018.
Okay.
So 15 years I was at BET.
Yeah.
In different capacities. So I wrote a treatment back in 2005 with another sister. And the concept was that we would actually pull up to dudes' houses. So we would actually go into people's man caves. And have conversation with them and their boys. So we would go into LeBron's house, and it would be a conversation with LeBron, D. Wade.
So this is the shop before the shop.
Yeah, but no. Yes and no. Yes and no. But one, that concept would have been way too expensive. Because you're talking about literally rolling up into dudes' houses every week.
Yeah.
So you got no set. You're literally having to set up in somebody's house. And two, I realized that there was something to regular dudes having a conversation. The shop is the shop because it's ultra A-listers.
Yes.
Like, these are dudes who are only living at this level.
At that level, yeah.
Ain't no regular niggas on the shop.
But you end up with Slink, who was amazing comedian and writer.
And I didn't want Slink.
Yes, and you didn't want him.
Nope.
You got Cosign, who's the young cat, young fella, music producer known in his generation.
Yep.
And you got Tank.
Yep.
Younger brother, but OG in the R&B game.
And not really young.
Not really young.
Yeah.
But who is now killing it.
Listen, I mean, here's what's crazy. When we were doing ManCave, Tank had the #1 R&B song.
Yeah.
When we.
So
that was hilarious. But
I'm gonna be ignorant.
But so I wrote this treatment in 2005. I didn't know what I could do with it. Fast forward to 2013. I just got done writing, ghostwriting. Well, not ghostwriting, because he did put my name in it. Act Like a Success, Think Like a Success for Steve Harvey. So I'm in the Steve Harvey camp, and I'm like, this might be a good idea to brush this shit off.
Yeah.
So I brush off the piece, change it around a little bit. So now we're not talking about being in people's houses, but it's how are we elevating the complexity of Black men by having a conversation with Black men.
And if I'm not mistaken, that title sounds familiar. Act Like a Success, Think Like a Success. The predecessor to.
Yeah. So obviously that was a build on Act Like a Man, Act Like
a Man, Think Like a Man.
Whatever the fuck it was. Right.
I think it was Act Like
Think like a woman, act like a man. Right.
Think Like a Man.
Whatever the fuck it was. Right. whatever.
Yeah.
That movie that gave away all the game.
Yes.
Right? So we I said, wait a minute. So I talked to this brother whose name Gerald Washington was Steve's business manager. And I'm like, man, you think Steve would be willing to be co-EP with me on this? And he said, let me see. So Steve and I talked. And by that point, we had a relationship. Like, you know, when you write this book for somebody, you've been in their house, you've been with the kids. You know, I've been with Marjorie and like the whole thing at that point. So he knew me, and he was like, "Bet, let's do it." So I do a meeting with Stephen Hill, um, Deborah Lee, who was the president, who was the CEO of BET at the time. It was me, Stephen Hill, Deborah Lee, and Steve Harvey about ManCave. And Deborah Lee's like, I love it. Let's do it. Stephen Hill's like, I like it. Let's do it. And that was in 2013. It took us from 2013 to 2017 to get it on the air. There were a bunch of shifts in who was the head of development for BET. We hadn't fully flushed it out in a way that BET could make a decision. We started flushing it out. Then I think probably around 2014, 2015, we do a pilot. So I'm forever grateful. Like, I'm forever grateful to Tank, John Sally, Orlando Jones, and what's my brother's name? Who did Avatar and Laz Alonso.
Laz, yes.
So it was Tank, Laz
BET
Alonso, Laz Alonso, Orlando Jones, and John Sally, who all did the pilot. And like, these brothers came for nothing. They didn't ask for nothing. They just came through, sat and did this pilot. And Lexus was the sponsor. So my people at Walton Isaacson got Lexus to come through. I'm talking about Lexus gave us a truck for the pilot.
Right.
So it was done right, and that was what helped us prove concept for the show. And then ultimately we did a 3-day casting session. Like, you would have been shocked. Like, you know, some of the people that tried to get on as a cast member but didn't.
And that's the thing, like, you didn't just go for a celebrity on that.
No.
Because Cosign, Young OG, he wasn't famous.
Well, and Cosign, so what's crazy is I was at the Revolt conference, and Cosign is part of a crew. So the interns, production team, him and Two, I knew Two, but I know Cos. So me and Two is sitting just politicking, and Two is like, "Hey, Cos, you got to come down." Right. I'm talking to Cos. I'm like, "Hey, man,
you sharp.
You want to do TV?"
Yeah.
Literally.
I see, but I see it in
TV?
you. Yeah.
We were doing the casting the next week.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to put you on the list to come through for the casting. And so we did 3 days of casting. I'm talking about probably 50 guys.
It's Coast. You end up with Slink Johnson, who is not a super famous guy, but is a well-known and extraordinarily accomplished comedian. Right?
So Slink had been Black Jesus.
Yes.
Yes. And Slink rounded us out.
Yeah.
Because there was really no hood representative.
Yeah.
And Slink became, Slink a Crip. So, no, for
real
real.
Life.
No. So Slink, greatest feedback on ManCave ever. I'm talking to this 50-year-old CEO who's a dear friend of mine, like really dear friend. And we're talking, he's like, "Yo, Slink is my favorite."
Yeah.
50-year-old white man that was like, "Slink is my favorite."
Yeah.
And so what we realized when we were casting was we don't need an A-lister. We need an ensemble that clicks.
There's an authenticity.
And people would be
Slink.
like, "Do y'all really have that much fun?"
Yeah.
And the answer is yes.
And you go from Slink, who brings an extraordinary authenticity, and Tank, who is, by the way, Black famous for a long time before ManCave.
Oh yeah.
Right? And
oh no. Wait, I gotta tell you this. I gotta tell you this. So we're launching the show, and so Steve brings us on the Steve Harvey show.
Mm-hmm.
So, before you get introduced on the show, you're sitting back stage before the little thing opens up. And right before we go out, Tank is like, so listen, this thing is going to open up and there's going to be this incredibly loud applause. And he said, your ego is going to make you think it's for you.
Ooh.
But it's not. It's for me. Yo, dude, that shit was priceless. And he was right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because Tank has been singing to these women
For a long time.
for the last decade.
With no shirt on.
For the last decade. Oh, no. Tank were regular.
Oiled up.
So another hilarious story. Cosign was the youngest and as a result the most immature. And Tank was like, yeah, I got to go do this gay convention thing this weekend. And Cosign, what? What are you talking about? Da, 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 da. He said, yo, brother, he said, I will take these titties out and shake them for anybody that
Them
wants
niggas
them.
buy records.
Man, listen, that I had a lot of fun on Rap City.
Yeah, on ManCave.
No, on Rap City.
Okay.
A lot of fun on Rap City. It was a great crew. I mean, we would be dying laughing doing Rap City. I've never had as much fun doing anything as I did doing ManCave. Those three brothers, man, became my friends. You know, we continue to talk. We continue. I had a crisis moment. I had a crisis with my son in LA, and I've sent out a text to a bunch of people about getting to where my son was. The first person who responded was Caucus and was like, give me the address, I'm on the way. And so that show, it wasn't a performance. It was four Black men who appreciated the difference in each other.
Yeah.
Slink, I took Slink out to dinner a couple of times. He was pissed because he's like, man, I'm tired of you taking me all these bougie ass places. Nigga. They ain't really serving no food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that we talk about ManCave because I got to know you around that time when it started.
Yeah.
And the general public, right around
that's
with
true.
it, and the general public could look at ManCave and say, oh, you did one season, you did 8 episodes, it was a failure. But no, anytime a motherfucker takes a show from seed to sip, as we would say in the beer industry, right? From concept to this is on air for a season, that's a success.
Bro, we couldn't get people to agree to come on the show.
Come on now.
When we first started.
So talk on that.
Think about it. Think about this. One of Tank's groomsmen was Jamie Foxx.
Yes, sir.
Jamie Foxx was like, no.
Yeah.
I'm not coming on the show.
Why not?
Because I don't know what it is. I don't necessarily trust BET.
Yeah.
I don't know what y'all doing. I don't know how y'all gonna make me look.
And
I don't know.
And you my guy.
Call me on season 2.
Yeah.
So what was interesting was by the time we were getting to the end of season 1, we had guys calling us asking to be on the show. The problem was BT wanted instant success.
But let's talk about who you had. Before we get to how you had Nipsey Hussle.
Yep.
Rest in peace.
Yep.
You had Tristan Walker in one of the...
Nope.
No, you didn't have Tristan?
We had Mac Wiles.
Yeah, let me back up.
Yeah.
Okay. You had Nipsey Hussle.
Yeah.
You had Steve Harvey.
Yep.
Who was an executive producer.
Yep.
You had Mac Wiles.
Yep. We had Charlemagne. We had Deion Cole.
Yeah.
We had Jermaine Dupri.
Yeah.
We had Damon John.
You had Lamar Odom.
Yep.
In one of his first post-Kardashian sit-downs.
That was our first episode.
Yes. So you had extraordinarily compelling guests, right? Throughout the whole thing.
We had
Exhibit.
Which was a really great show, actually.
That's a big... Listen, Exhibit is an LA legend.
Yeah.
Right? And like beyond Pimp My Ride. Yeah. He's that dude out there on the West Coast. Yeah. And so you put together, regardless of how long it lasts, I don't care what niggas got to say, you put together an extraordinarily compelling and successful season of an art project.
Yeah.
And that's not to go without getting its proper flowers, in my view.
Well, and what most people don't know, I've never talked about this publicly, is that we were getting ready after BET passed on it. We were going to go for another run, and I had gotten Michael K. Williams to agree to be co-EP.
Another rest in peace.
And then we lost him.
Yeah.
And that derailed a lot, both practically and emotionally. But it was. I've always viewed it as a win, to be able to bring something, to talk to people about something and they say, I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
To it being a show.
Yeah.
That legitimate cats are coming on.
I watched every week.
And that women loved.
Women loved it because it was insight.
The goal of the show was to, because men won't drive content unless it's live sports.
Wait, say that again.
People need to hear it. Men will not drive content
say it into the mic,
unless it's live.
Because there's a lot of cats out there who think they want to do what you do, and they think they want to be on TV.
No. Women drive content. Our goal was to be man approved and women digestible. So we always felt like it's going to be 70% women.
Yeah.
Because women drive content. I don't care if it's digital. I don't care if it's on. There are very few people that have been able to fully capture a man audience. You got Nori with Drink Champs. You got Earn Your Leisure. Even I Am Athlete. But on TV, there's no show that has been driven by men except live sports. Period. Digital is all about geo-targeting, so it's different. But TV is women, and we knew we want this to be a show. There's two things, Don, that I was like unmovable about. Number one is I'm not giving women advice about being women.
Okay.
This is called ManCave. We got enough of our own shit.
Yeah.
We ain't figured out our own shit.
Yeah.
How the hell are we giving women advice about being women? We will give women a better understanding to the men in their lives. So, and two was no audience. And I hate to think what ManCave would have been if we would have had a live audience. It might have still been on the air though.
Maybe because performance
sells.
lasts. Performance sells. Yeah.
The fact that I was told once by a BET executive, y'all don't argue enough.
Yeah. Performance sells. And performative content sells,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
But I think it's important to establish that you did a show that was authentically yours. It was a success. It authentically represented what you wanted it to be. And for whatever reason, it didn't last. But while you're doing this, you maintain a private sector practice, right? And talk about what that looks like. Because ManCave is not paying the bills, right? Your show, which you hit the holy grail of this public affairs life, you had a show that you created, you controlled the content, but you're also working. Because I mean, during that time, you're coming back and forth, Baltimore to LA, LA to Baltimore.
I was back and forth to LA every week.
It was a grind. And you're married, you had young children, right? So break that down. How are you still paying the bills in this game, regardless of ManCave's success?
And ManCave was good. ManCave was probably the best money I ever made on TV because it was different. I mean, I created it. I was getting a talent check and a producer check. It was still BET money, which is drastically lower than.
But you're getting money for being on TV.
I was. But I never trusted it. And so my consultancy was always important to me. One, because I really enjoyed doing it. Two, because I just didn't feel confident that TV could last forever. If we would have gone to a second season, I might have thought differently, but we didn't. So I maintained my client base. I would be in LA in between production meetings, pre-production meetings, talent meetings, doing client meetings. And there'd be times where I had to rush out immediately after taping to be able to serve clients. But but the client work that I do is impact work, and it's as much a part of my call as the work that I'd done. And listen, we were doing growth-driven, growth-focused DEI work before George Floyd.
Yeah.
And so once George Floyd happened, it was unbelievable. Like when I tell you the boom to the firm was incredible. And I just got tired of being a CEO. I realized that I think Black men in particular, that often we will take the largest risk with the lowest return in the name of ego-driven control. And
wait, break that down. Largest risk,
yep. So as
lowest return in the name of ego-driven control. What does that look like?
So I somewhere I learned I'm supposed to be in control of this. So I'm running my own firm where I'm fronting all the money on the upfront.
Yeah.
I'm doing aspects of the work that I'm not great at. I'm navigating risk that I'm not technically trained to mitigate. And I'm making mistakes, and I'm paying extra in taxes, and I'm spending double in certain areas because I'm doing things that I don't have to do in the name of I'm the boss.
Yeah.
When I didn't have to do that. And so I've now joined with a firm where I'm leveraging other people's resources to do biz dev. When a contract comes in, I can send it to somebody else who actually does contracts.
Admin.
When legal issues come up, I don't have to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking on the most risk, but I'm getting legitimate return from somebody else's investment. And while I may not now be in control of the whole thing, I now am actually leveraging a greater level of revenue and equity with somebody else.
So that's
than I am with myself. And I want to be clear though, Don, that doesn't mean I don't think brothers should be entrepreneurs. It means when is the right place to be an entrepreneur?
That's right.
Where is the right place to pull the trigger? Am I in the place where this is the greatest return on investment for me?
That's right.
Versus my ego is telling me now is the right time. My ego is telling me
I'm a boss. I'm the nigga.
now's the time to do it. And so you and I both know dudes that are killing the game by way of growth and expansion and capacity, and they're doing it the right way. But a lot of us are doing it too early with not enough resources at the detriment of not only our finances, but our peace of mind.
That's right. And no infrastructure.
And our gift.
So you have an interesting mix of children.
Yes.
The Bible says, I don't know what the Bible says. I don't know. I'm not going to front. I ain't going to front. I don't know if the Bible says this. But Game of Thrones says that a way for a man to extend his legacy is to have multi-generational children, and you have that.
Yeah, I don't know about Game of Thrones, but yes.
Fair enough.
I've got 24, 21, 26, and 5.
You got grown kids?
Yeah.
And then you got a set of babies.
Yes.
So there is this undercurrent of fatherhood.
Yes.
Which goes 25 years back to when you're on Rap City.
Before I'm on
Rap City.
Yes.
Up through you being a partner at a globally recognized public affairs firm, and you can get your calls returned by whoever you want, right? But fatherhood is a consistency throughout that. And given what we've talked about, it's fatherhood against the backdrop of, I don't necessarily know where a paycheck is going to come from. I'm out here hustling, right? I'm consulting, I'm working campaigns, I'm strategizing, so on and so forth. So talk about fatherhood and the importance of fatherhood and being a husband and a provider against the context of trying to create a career for yourself in which there's no blueprint for what your career looks like going forward.
Yeah, and for most of my life, I failed at that. Because I was told that the most important thing I could do was earn. So I did that, like, hard. I went out and did it, and I missed things, and I I think the other thing, Don, is the most prolific fathers are the men who are the most secure in who they are. Your babies don't care about your job. Your babies don't care about your title. Your babies don't care how much money you make.
No, but I think they do.
No, they
I'm
don't.
convinced that they do.
Then you need therapy.
Whew.
Because what your kids care about is, did you play with me?
Come on, man.
Did you listen to me? And it's not even the big shit. It's not even like, did you make it to every recital?
Yeah.
It was, when I was sad, would daddy be there? When I was confused,
Come on, man.
did daddy help me figure this out?
Yeah.
When I was lonely, was daddy there to hug me? Like when I woke up in the middle of the night, was daddy there? And that's the hard shit, right? Because for a lot of us, we may not be in the same house with our kids. And so there's the reality of how we navigate that, and our egos that are rooting our relationship with our children through the lens of the relationship with their mother.
Come on, man. Wait. That bears repeating. Spit on it. Because no, because we're gonna be honest about this. Regardless of what we're trying to give in terms of the politics and building a political career, you know, people are not detached and siloed, right?
No.
And so
we're whole people.
You're talking about being mothers, you're talking about being fathers, you're talking about just being good humans in the context of trying to build a career. So say that again. You're talking about a universe of, I'm achieving over here and this is going well. And I got a couple clients and the bills are paid. But am I being a decent human in this entirely different space?
Well, here's what's challenging. Success is actually the worst thing that can happen to a man who's not fully developed. Because in the name of, especially black men, being affirmed, if I'm affirmed in my work, but I haven't fully matured, now all I do is lean to work because it's the place that makes me feel safe. I can navigate this shit on my terms.
Yeah.
I'm a beast in this motherfucker. Like I'm moving, I'm signing clients, or I'm getting deals, or I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I'm showing up. I'm the big man, right? I'm doing this. And then I gotta go home where I'm often dealing with the reflection of not knowing how to talk to a partner.
Yeah.
Not knowing how to be present for some kids. So home becomes a place of frustration and arrested development. And work becomes a place for learning and growth.
Yeah.
But because the work helps me fund this, now I show it with my chest out.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck you mean you don't appreciate the shit I do?
Yeah.
Even though I don't talk to you.
Yeah. No, it's weird.
Even though I'm not available to you, right?
Bro,
and this is a generalization, right?
No, it's not though, because at 44,
but
I have learned that you ain't the man just because you pay for everything in this motherfucker.
No.
You know what I mean? Like
you're the funder.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean that you get to dictate and own and...
But here's the thing. Like somewhere, somebody told us that men are in charge of something.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And any real man that's not fair. Any man who is committed to legacy beyond what he can control by himself is committed to partnership.
True.
And partnership requires something of us that is challenging if we haven't either one, matured, or two, healed.
Mm.
Because most of us, and I'm not just talking about men, are in relationships that are rooted in fear. So most romantic relationships are about ownership, possession, and codependency, which is why we act the way we do, right? If you're in a secure relationship that is not about ownership or codependency, then I actually don't care where you are.
Mm. Mm.
Because why?
Yeah.
If I'm not in a relationship that's rooted in codependency and ownership, why do I care? I care if you're okay. I don't have to monitor your comings and goings. I don't have to monitor who you're in a relationship with. If I'm secure, that's really challenging for folks. Like I had a debate with somebody because they were talking about the value of responsibility and obligation.
Mm.
And I said that I reject responsibility and obligation. And like, what are you talking about? Aren't you obligated to your kids? I'm like, no. You know what I mean? Niggas I know don't take care of their kids.
Yeah.
Obligation and responsibility are shackles. Choice is power. I love that I choose my kids every day. I love that I choose my kids. I don't show up and play with my babies because I feel like I'm supposed to. I show up and play with my kids because I choose to.
That's interesting. So, do you feel as though you're a different father?
Hell yeah.
For...
I already know what
I'm
you
excited.
asking.
Yeah. So
Yes.
you know what I'm asking, but they don't.
I tell my 24,
no,
my 20,
no.
and my 21-year-old kid on a regular basis,
So,
I am sorry.
Madison,
Yes.
Malcolm,
Yes.
and
Miles.
Yes.
Have a different father.
Are grown-ass adults.
Yes. Who have a different father
than Garvey and Baldwin.
At their age.
Yes.
But that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the beauty. Madison, Miles, and Malcolm have me now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they did not have the father at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 that Baldwin and Garvey have at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They had the best I had.
It's the best you could do. Yeah.
And my daughter in particular understands how to give me grace.
Yeah.
For who I didn't know how to be. Wait. Because of who I was.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Like, I think about my dad. My dad died when he was 67 from cancer. I think about the things my dad didn't know how to be. But I don't even really have time to worry about that, Don, because I think about more what he gave me that he ain't never had.
Come on now. Come on. But that's what we gotta. So I think that like you and I.
But that's why I was saying earlier, these babies don't care about you being perfect. They care about you being present. Yeah. And they don't care about you being present perfect.
Yeah.
They care about you being present with what you got.
Was you there?
And what your babies will remember is that my daddy was fucked up. Yeah. But he was there.
Yeah.
My daddy was crazy as hell. But he showed up.
He was there. Yeah.
My daddy, you know what? He wasn't even totally grown up.
Yeah.
But that dude, man, he tickled me and he hugged me and he kissed on me and he loved on me. Like, these babies ain't looking for us to be perfect. They're looking for us to be as present as we know how to be, and that they will forgive.
But
they
when
will
do they
forgive
get that?
What we didn't know.
When do they understand the
with their own healing?
We know how to be part
with their own healing.
Oof.
With their own healing. Because we still got to acknowledge that. Like, I really get irritated by people who overplay intention and underplay impact.
Yeah.
Like, and that's for a lot of us in relationships, right? Like, I understand that you had good intentions. So it's like me and you shadow boxing. Like, our intention is to play. but I just did this real quick,
Yeah, you
and
slapped
I
me.
broke your jaw.
Yeah.
Now, my intention was good, but your jaw's wired.
Yeah.
I have to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
I have to acknowledge that your jaw is wired, no matter what my intentions were.
Yeah.
As men, sometimes we got to swallow a lot of ego and say, our intention was never to have a negative impact on our babies, but our lack of emotional availability, our the difficult moments of carrying a relationship with our children through the lens of a dysfunctional relationship with a mom, our ignorance about what we didn't know, what we weren't taught, impacted our babies. And so a lot of times I watch dads be like, what you mean you got trauma?
Yeah. Well,
I
no,
paid for this and I did
yeah.
this.
Well, that's the
but
thing.
that
I mean,
don't
look,
but it don't matter.
Johnny B was who he was.
Yes.
My dad, over your shoulder, is who he is. I think they understood that if the lowest levels on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs are provided for, then they won. Then they did their job. Air, water, shelter, safety, and maybe you could advance to schooling and books. They thought, and you can't convince them today that they didn't do their jobs to an extraordinary degree because they provided those things because they daddies maybe didn't for them, right? Air, water, shelter, security, safety. You and I are talking about understanding neurodivergencies, right? And teaching our kids to navigate aesthetic beauty and things of that nature.
You're doing too much.
I'm not, because our dads were trying to provide the basics.
Don, but
and you and I don't think it's sufficient.
What you're talking about, from our fathers to here, there's a lot in the middle. All I want to do is hear my daughter with my heart and not my head. That's it. I'm not talking about a whole bunch of other neuroscience, metaphysical shit. All I'm talking about is, how do I see my children with my heart and not my head?
Yeah.
That's it. No, my father didn't understand that. But I'm not talking about all this other stuff. I'm literally like, when my daughter is crying, how do I tell her not to toughen up?
Yeah.
How do I understand?
How do I not tell her? Yeah.
How do I understand her first? Like I had a conversation with Madison once, and because she was my firstborn, and because she's literally brilliant, I pushed her a lot. And as a young woman, I pushed her to be logical. And so I'm always talking logical. And we got to a point where I was like, wait a minute. What good is it for me to push my baby to be logical so she can defend herself in the world if she doesn't feel loved first?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's that simple, Don. Like, in this day and time, all I want to do is have enough patience and presence to hear my children with my heart.
And she's a grown-up.
Yeah.
And you got little babies, but that has not expired with your oldest.
Children need their parents differently at every stage. So there's a point when our children just need us as these infants to make them feel safe in a loud world.
Yeah.
And make sure they're fed. Then our kids, when they're toddlers, actually just want us to be there when they hurt themselves discovering. They actually don't want us to be with them when they're discovering.
Right.
They want to discover. They want to break shit and climb stuff and do all of that. They want us to be there when they hurt themselves discovering. Then our babies want us to be there to help translate things they don't understand. Then our babies want us to help create an ecosystem for them to walk in that supports their dreams and aspirations. Then our kids are in a place where they're navigating the world on their own terms, but they always want a safe place to come back to when the world isn't kind. our babies want us for different things in different places. And I think the most important thing for parents is to not make that dictated by us. There are things that as parents we need to set an expectation for, and help our children be able to learn to do things on their own and be self-sufficient. But so often we act like our job is to make their life. And it ain't.
Yeah.
Like they were given to us for whatever reason to help them discover for themselves how they show up in the world, not to tell them how to show up in the world. And the greatest joy is when I don't care whether it's Garvey at 5 or whether it's Madison at 24, my greatest joy is watching them be them on their terms. That's the greatest. So again, whether it's 5, like watching Garvey do something on his own, where he like, I did this, or watching Madison solve a problem for herself on her own terms, is the greatest joy as a father I have. And I stopped feeling like it was my job to determine what they would become, and realize it was my job to support them discovering and becoming themselves.
What they want to be. Yeah.
No. Who they are. Who they are. I have learned in my own discovery that I spent way too much time thinking that my value proposition was what I did versus who I am. And so I'm thankful that I can help my kids discover who they are versus what they do. What they do is fine, but who are they? Because we take who we are into everything we do. So if we aren't confident or secure about who we are, then nothing we do will be confident. We play like it.
Yeah.
We play like it is.
Right.
But
Right.
how can they be so confident about who they are that they recognize, I bring this to everything. Nobody's giving me anything except an opportunity they're giving me an opportunity to gain value from who I am. They're not giving me an opportunity to be me.
Yeah.
And I didn't learn that. Like, I literally spent the vast majority of my adult life trying to prove I was enough by the shit I did.
Yeah.
Versus understanding that all of that was rooted in who I am. And so as a father, my goal is, how do I help my babies navigate discovering and understanding who they are? And that's a relationship between them and God.
Yes.
It's not a relationship between me and them.
Yeah. 2 last questions, man. And you have been more than generous with your time, man. And I thank you tremendously. So I'm going to close it out with this. Number 1, man, as you look across the landscape, and you're like Jay-Z, knowing who, the young MCs are, right? You're Jay-Z knowing who Glorilla is, right? So as you look at the game, man, tell me who you see as having next, as being a part of the carriers of your legacy. Who is taking the game to places that you and I couldn't reach, but who do you see potential in for being leaders in this space?
It's interesting because I don't know if I am that. I'm so narrowly focused on the work that I do and my kids that I don't know if I always see the young cats coming up next. I know I know that, whether I think about young guys that reach out to me from different industries and I talk to, um, I think what's crazy about the moment we're in now is that even if we had a blueprint, stuff is changing so quickly that the blueprint, wow. Don, I think what I realized just in thinking about the answer to the question is the blueprint that we should be sharing is not a professional one, it's a personal one. Um, I put together a group. My son Malcolm was moving to Atlanta to do some things, and I put together a meeting of guys that are in my tribe for him. And it was Jamal Bryant, it was Chris Classic, it was my guy Gerald who used to work for Steve Harvey, Lamont Rucker, who's my little guy's godfather, one of my cousins, and one other brother. And I remember Jamal saying to Malcolm, he said, "Man, I've had unbelievable success in my life, um, but I've often failed as a man." He said, "So I don't want to be here for you to help you be an artist or to help you be a creative or to help you do this. I want to be here to help you be a better man." And I think that's the game. Because these young dudes, man, they know what they want to do in a way that sometimes I don't even understand. Um, but there's a reality about who are they as humans, who are they as men, are they taking care of themselves, are they feeding the areas of their lives that aren't about work. And if there's a blueprint that I could give, it's about that.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about a lot of the young dudes I see, most of whom don't want to do things the way I did them, who think about this stuff in a hybrid way that often is outside of any way that I could have viewed it. I get excited. I told Madison once, I'm never going to be excited about your ideas until I don't understand them.
Right.
Because you are supposed to be on my shoulders. I'm on my dad's shoulders. So you're supposed to see things I can't see. So you should be conceptualizing things I don't understand. And so when these dudes come up to me with these crazy ass ideas about what they do and how they do it, and I'm like, yo, you need to explain that shit to me for a minute before I can get it. That's when I get excited. So I just say to these young dudes, man, just think so big that it don't make sense. Think so outside of the box until you got to ask yourself, can I really do this?
Yeah.
Because that's when you know you're in the right place. If it don't scare the shit out of you, then it's not where you're supposed to be.
And that kind of goes to my next and final question, which is explain the game. You have pulled together an extraordinary career in politics and public affairs and all the things we've talked about. Give some advice, give some game to somebody who may be graduating from college, may not be graduating from college, but watches MSNBC or Fox News every day and decides that they want to participate in American public affairs, decides that they want to be a part of ideological public leadership.
Yeah.
And you have, whether you are too modest to admit it or not, you have carved out a space for yourself in leadership in these spaces. Give some game to your younger self. 30 years ago, what did you not know that you would have liked to hear somebody in your position of your stature tell yourself?
So number one, give honest thought to the world that you think should exist. And spend every waking moment attempting to make that world real. Because it'll evolve. The more you learn, the more you experience, the more you do, the clarity around what that world should be will become more and more clear, more and more sophisticated. But number one, start with imagining the world that you believe should exist, because the biggest problem for people who don't is now, whether they realize it or not, they're working to create a world that somebody else wants to exist.
Who somebody else has put in the time and the work and garnered the resources to come to fruition, right?
Or diabolically wants to exist at the harm of other people. So when you know the world you want to exist, now you know who you align with. And so that's the second thing, is build tribe. I never forget, I remember Terrence J once. It was me, Terrence J, David Banner at an event at A&T. And he was like, while everybody else was trying to reach up, I was reaching out.
Come on, man.
Everybody else was trying to get next to the dude that was next to the dude. And I was reaching out to cats that were as hungry as I was, that wanted to build the same thing I wanted to build. So the second thing is build tribe and create a space of safety and accountability in that tribe. Be excited about your ignorance. So that
wait, say it again. Be excited.
Be excited about your ignorance, so you never in a room and you prevent yourself from learning what you're supposed to learn. How many times you been in a room pretending like you knew some shit you ain't know?
Yeah.
Damn, this is the dumbest shit ever. This is the dumbest shit ever, man. Like,
right.
I think about how many rooms I didn't learn what I was supposed to because I was trying to convince somebody that I knew something I didn't know.
Yeah.
That I wasn't even required to know.
Yeah. Ultimately, that you was somebody that you wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's be so excited about your ignorance that you never block yourself from learning what you're supposed to learn. And then last but not least, like, be aggressive about failing hard. I think about this, right? If you and I are standing right here and you're like, yo, man, I'm about to do this crazy shit I don't even know if I can do. And the first step, you fall on your face. And I'm like, I ain't falling on my face like that, motherfucker. I'm about to stand right here and I ain't doing nothing. When you get up, you're closer to your destiny than me. Yeah. And so those who are excited about failing hard are the ones that have the greatest capacity to get to the place that they're supposed to be.
Man, listen.
And I would say this, the last thing for real, is I have been surrounded by great men who succeeded in spite of fear instead of because of courageousness.
Wait. In spite of fear instead of because
Me
of
and so many of the
courageousness.
dudes I know,
Come on, man,
succeeded in spite of our fears that we weren't courageous about, that we hid from, that we ran from, that we denied, that we failed to acknowledge. We had a call on our life that God, the universe, felt was important enough to achieve, that in spite of our fear, we were successful.
Yeah.
I want to see a generation of Black men that are so immersed in love that courageousness is a byproduct of waking up. And they face their fears in a way that they never run from them or hide from them.
So what you're saying, and I hate to interrupt a poignant moment, but what you're saying is that fear is inherently a part of every stage of the shit you done did. Like, it was there all along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, fear is supposed to exist. The fear is supposed to be a mechanism of us inserting love into. And so when we are afraid, do we insert love into it? And if we don't, then we become jealous, or we become envious, or we become frustrated, or we become all the things that are byproducts of fear. The thing is, if I see the fear and I insert love into it, then I become patient, then I become giving, then I become sharing, then I become transparent. And now what I'm able to build from that place is so much more effective than what is created as a result of my fear. And Black men have not been taught, not always given an example of love, because we've been taught to protect ourselves and thus survive versus put ourselves out there and thrive.
My brother, listen, man, you have given me an extraordinary amount of time today, but more importantly, you have given me an extraordinary amount of time over the course of our relationship, and you have done all of these things, from consultant to journalist to TV host to executive producer to simply to fatherhood to being a brother. You have done it on an extraordinarily high level, man. And listen, I can't thank you enough for everything you've poured into me and everything you've poured into the generations to come, brother. So I truly appreciate you, man. And thank you for everything you've done for us, brother. And I hope that there's somebody out there that can hear from your journey and grow from it like I have. I've had a front row seat, first-hand seat to all the things that you've been, brother. So I truly appreciate you, man. And I can't thank you enough for all you've done for me and for the Negro universe to come, man. So I appreciate you.
And I say the same, because no relationship is truly meaningful if both people aren't investing in it. So cheers, I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, man. Cheers, bro.
Absolutely.
Listen. Caucus Room, episode 1. Thank you all for joining us. Shout out to my big brother, Jeff Johnson. And a lot of folks say that's my brother this, that's my brother that. But Jeff Johnson has proven brotherhood, has gone above and beyond in the time of need to reach out to me as a brother. And I hope that this is as useful to you all.